Hello and welcome to Pot of the Dead, the internet horror film club that nobody asked for. I am your host, Nicholas, and with me as always are the two final girls, Stephanie
Hello.
and Natasha.
Hi, guys.
On today's episode, we are covering the 2014 horror film The Babadook.
Which is a psychological horror film written and directed by Jennifer Kent in her feature directorial debut, based on her 2005 short film Monster. It stars Essie Davis, Noah Weissman, among others, which follows a widowed single mother who, with her son, must confront the mysterious humanoid monster in their home.
So, before this week's homework and stuff, what are your girls' history with this film?
It's one that's kind of been tossed around on my streaming services. I had seen it, I've heard people talk about it. All I knew was it was kind of like a boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really it. I hadn't seen it otherwise.
I didn't have any knowledge about anything about nothing. Like I didn't know it was and I didn't even see the cover of it until we started going to watch it and I was like, "What the
Huh.
fuck is that cover?" And then that was about it. Yeah.
Yeah, you
So I
openly were
knew
like,
zero.
the cover came up and you were like, this looks like shit.
It does. Yeah, so
You instantly were like on your heels, like what the fuck? Because
yeah.
the reason we covered this film was off air. Maybe it was in bonus content. I asked you girls like just kind of theming and time era and stuff like that. Like what kind of movie do you want? And it basically honed in, and we got to the Babadook. So that's why we're covering it. It's not that you girls picked it like right off the bat, but like what you girls were talking about and everything funneled us in there. And it makes
Yes.
sense because if you look on IMDb and it's like more films like this, it gives us It Follows, Sinister, The Witch, Hereditary, The Conjuring. It's definitely in that kind of uh,
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
like that grouping of films.
Yeah.
So in 2014, this came out. What do you believe its budget was?
Mm. 2014.
2 point, yeah, we're just gonna have $2 million.
All right.
5.
Ding, 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 ding. Tasha, $2 million.
Yay.
Yay!
Of its total budget, 30,000 of it was raised via Kickstarter. Most of the
Oh,
funds raised from Kickstarter were channeled towards the art department. But a big thing about this was, I believe, most, if not all of it, was crowdfunded. So,
Mm,
director
that's
Jennifer
cool.
Kett stated that American distributors were willing to help raise the budget on the condition that the Babadook something at the end. Kent refused as the Babadook represents certain things, which I'm refraining from saying stuff because I don't want to ruin it. But she stuck to her thing and was just like, no, this movie needs to be made the way that I want it to be made because everything
yeah.
about this matters. And she just, the movie was financed through crowdfunding completely. So this was, uh, that's I regardless of whether I like or dislike this film, when I hear that kind of stuff, I'm like, fuck yeah. Don't
Yeah.
like it because it's that's so much about art, you know, like
Yeah, it's like an indie film basically, so
yeah,
that's
I'm
cool.
doing what I want to do. Like this was released through IFC channel, I believe. And it's Australian because that was one of the first things I noticed. Like the little like thing came up. I was like, oh wait, I know, I remember this because that's the same production, whatever that Talk to Me came through, and I was like, this
Oh,
is
Oh, okay.
so
okay.
it's uh, probably distributed through them and everything. But my history with this film is I was very aware of it and everything, and I remember turning it on, starting it, maybe got 10 minutes into it and had to do something else and
Mm.
never returned for some reason. That and the amount of memes that have come out from this film of when the mother and son are in the car and she's basically just going, why can't you be normal? And then the kid is just screaming. So many times it'll be like, you know, like parents talking to their kids that listen to death metal. It's just like that kind of stuff. So like it's a very memed movie
Huh.
and everything. So
Okay. That's cute.
but on its $2 million budget, what do you believe it brought in the box office?
Did it have a wide release?
Yes, it did.
But for a weekend? Or like
No.
actual?
It had a wide release. It had a legitimate release. These are legitimate questions because, like, what was it? Killer Clowns from Outer Space was released for
Yeah.
one weekend in one theater.
Yeah. And it was like,
Yeah.
how much money do you make in one theater on one weekend? So I mean,
Yeah. In a
Five,
tiny town.
yeah.
it made 5 buttons.
Yeah. I want to say this made like 5.2.
3 million.
It made $10.5 million,
Wow.
making
What?
making it the 12th highest grossing horror film for 2014. This
Wow.
this movie, in a way, is regarded as the best horror film of 2014,
Okay.
specifically when like referring to like Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes and
Oh,
things
yeah.
like that. Uh, because like for 2014, the top 10 horror films were The Pyramid, The Quiet Ones, Paranormal
Yeah.
Activity,
Okay.
one of the later ones.
One of them's.
Um, The Woman in Black 2, Devil's Due, As Above, So Below, which I like that one.
Okay.
Oculus,
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Deliver Us from Evil, Ouija, and
Oh,
Annabelle.
okay.
Okay.
So I think I've only heard of 4 of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of those are no.
but horror wasn't what horror can be some years because, my God, the box office for just in general in movies,
Mm.
we were real deep
In the
into
Marvel universe.
Yeah.
into Disney and Fox and all
Yeah.
that, just like ruling the
Yeah.
day. So
Yeah.
top 10 was The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Big Hero 6, Dawn of the
Wow.
Planet of the Apes, X-Men
Oh.
Days of Future Past, Maleficent, Transformers Age of Extinction,
Yay.
The Lego Movie, Captain
Oh.
America Winter Soldier, The
Oh.
Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, and
Yay.
top film for the year was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Wow. Okay.
There was
Yeah.
one original movie in that
Yeah.
entire setup. Big Hero 6.
Yeah, like it's all just IP fodder.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think was it number 11 was Godzilla. I have that clipped off. But yeah, like
One of
so-
the many remakes.
yeah,
Yes.
100%. And like those are the things that like for me anyhow always drive me towards horror for the most part is because they tend to be lower budget, so like companies are more willing to try out new stories and stuff.
Yeah.
But then also the problem with that is once something clicks, then that production company wants to make 30 of them.
Yeah.
You know, Saul
Sure.
and fucking all that shit. So
Terrifier.
yeah. Well,
Garbage.
that at least is just fucking independently financed. Like
Yeah,
that's
that's true.
him. That's Damien Leone being like, nah, man, we're just gonna. How many guts can we put in this film? all of them? Can I
All
get
the
all
guts.
Can I get all of them with a side of extra? So,
Literally.
but yeah, some interesting things that happened with this film was the movie had a campaign where you could buy a copy of the handcrafted Babadook pop-up book
Oh, that's
For-
cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
for
Yeah.
$80. The first 2,000 copies were numbered and signed by director Jennifer Kent. She's also the writer. That's needed to
Oh,
be known.
okay.
But this is
Yeah.
a singular vision. This is written and directed by Jennifer Kent.
That's
The
cool.
book contains pop-up pictures as well as additional pages not seen in the movie. The campaign was only open for a limited amount of time and sold roughly 9,500 books. So
Wow.
that would be cool. Like I'm not going to give my take on this, but that would be a cool like horror collectible to like just
Yeah.
have.
I would have
Have
bought
on
that.
the bookshelf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's
not $80 for that to be, and then possibly if the
And
first
that's a-
2,000 signed,
That's a big
nice.
fucking book.
That's a good
too.
price. Yeah.
Like that red cover. Like it's
Mhm.
that's such a like for lack of a better term, it's such an iconic thing. Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know, like there are certain movies that just have this, you know, like Hellraiser has the lament configuration. Talk to
And the
Me
ne-
has the hand.
and Necronomicon for
The
for Evil
Evil
Dead.
Dead. Yep.
Yep.
And like
Mhm.
this, the Babadook book is such an iconic, albeit like kind of a cult classic, because I think that this movie has definitely got more groundswell like in streaming and stuff like
Mhm.
that and through word of mouth. But still, at the end of the day, fucking like once you see that book in the movie, you're like, uh-oh, because books never show up in movies that are like good times, like in
Right.
horror films.
Never. Neither
If
do movies.
yeah, the
Movies and
films,
books.
yeah, you
No.
Yeah.
yeah, it's either like a haunted journal, a haunted. It's always haunted,
Yes.
Haunted.
Why can't
Yeah.
it be Grandma's recipe book? Like you open it, it's like French toast, but it would normally be like French toast from hell.
Yeah.
Like Gray's recipe box that was left in your old house, Nick.
Oh shit, I fucking forgot about that.
Yeah.
The
Gray
house
left
that I
so many things.
yeah,
Yeah.
the house that I'd bought and everything. There was did I give that to you, Tasha?
I have it, yeah.
It was a box of just her handwritten recipes. It was an old lady's recipe
Oh,
catalog
that's
that she.
nice.
So Tasha's the big cook, so I was just like, "Here, you'll
Yeah.
love this." And she's like, "Oh my god, it's
Yeah.
got
So cool.
it's got peasant food from the 30s. I'm gonna make this."
It has some really, really simple things like how to boil noodles or something like that, where it's just like clearly you could read the box and do this, but
Well-
she wrote it out and they're so sweet. It's like it's for her husband or something.
100%.
Yeah.
That's what we came to the conclusion of because there was some of it that was just like almost like, "Now this is what you do, Bob." Like this, it's like very simple.
Yeah.
It was very cool though.
Sweet. That's very
That's
sweet.
cool that you still. I completely
Yeah.
forgot about that. That's cool that you still have that.
Yeah.
Sweet.
But let's see here before we get into spoiler territory. Let's see if there's anything I can say. So, Babadook, it means kind of two different things. In Hebrew, it stands for "He is coming for sure,"
Okay.
and it's also an anagram for a bad book.
Oh, cool.
Oh. I like the first one better.
But yeah, let's see here. Here we go. So, director Jennifer Kent was extremely sensitive about introducing the themes of the film to child actor Noah Wiseman.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah.
Watching this film, I'm just like, my God, how do you do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. During the 3 weeks of pre-production, she carefully gave him a child-friendly version of what the story was about.
That's
Okay.
cool.
Wiseman's mother was on set throughout the film, and Wiseman himself was never actually present on set during scenes in which Essie Davis's character abuses her son. Davis
Okay.
instead delivered the lines to an actor who stood on his knees. Kent is quoted as saying, "I didn't want to destroy a childhood to make this film." To get the reaction shots of Wiseman looking terrified, Davis said she would say things to him like, "I'm going to take your Legos and throw them into the river."
Which is equally as devastating to a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, "Oh, thank God!" Like because there is a line there's a specific line in this movie that out loud I was like, "Jesus Christ!"
Yeah. I mean, that was nice because if she did that, then she handled this really tactfully. Because like a lot of people will just throw the kids in the deep end and they're like, "Here, this is your child acting career,"
Yeah.
and like she actually handled this with like, "Hey, we need to be considerate of this kid and his mental health status. That speaks volumes."
And
And
it's seamless too, because like it
Yeah.
doesn't
I
look
would have
like that's
noticed
not.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really good, especially for this being her directorial debut, like as a feature film. She's only done 2 feature films. The other one is called The Nightingale that came out in 2017, and
That
is
sounds familiar.
actually we're not going to give ratings or anything out loud yet or anything, but it's actually on IMDb rated higher than this film
Okay.
if you take that for what it is. But I was like instantly I thought I'd heard of that movie, and then I saw she was the director writer of it, and then it was rated higher than this, and I was like, well shit, like I might have to check that one out. It'll have to
Yeah.
go onto my list. I don't even know if it's a horror film. It's just one of those things. I was like, I think she did a really good job of storytelling in this film and everything, so I'm willing to check out another one of her writer director movies. The interior of Amelia and Samuel's house was completely built inside a studio.
Oh wow.
They initially thought of building the first and second floors as separate sets, but since the movie involves a lot of running downstairs,
Mm,
they eventually built it as a 2-story set.
wow.
Shots through windows to the outside had to be avoided since there was actually
Mm.
only studio outside, and the
Mm.
budget did not allow for backgrounds. The production designers used lots of dark earth tones, and all the props and furniture that were bought had to be painted darker to convey the right mood. The floorboards were purposely worn out to give the house a lived-in quality.
That's
Okay.
really cool to take that account to even like paint the furniture old and worn.
Well, and that's something really interesting, like, because I don't look at this movie and think that this is like a soundstage set.
Right.
Now, that being said, Steph and I tried to watch the new Expendables movie, and that film, like, I think we got like 15, 20 minutes into it. It is like blatantly, you can tell that it's set design, and then anything that's background
Horrible.
is just CG backgrounds.
And it's
Oh,
so like I love the Expendables movies, and then I got to the fourth one. I was excited to watch it, and then the whole first part of the movie is like so
Bad.
cheesy and
Is so
so
bad.
bad.
And
And
not
I'm like,
cheesy like, ooh, yeah, boom, bang,
no,
pow, just like cringy.
yeah,
just like they're phoning it in. Like people
Kind
will watch this. Why try?
Well, there's like,
it's
there's
what it feels like.
there's parts where like they're standing like in doorways to a house and everything, and it just looks like a fucking fake wall built as a set, and like then it's just really bad.
Huh.
So
It
like
is.
having watched this and then going to that, not knowing like this feels like it's actually like a house. It's like,
Mhm.
no, this is a set that was built on a $2 million budget. Like that has special effects for it's just like that's fucking crazy
Yeah,
that like
that's
this
Mhm.
cool.
multi-million-dollar action craziness can't make a fucking house look real.
I know.
Not even a house, a doorway
A
from what
doorway.
you're
Yeah,
saying.
it's horrible.
So,
Oh,
Wow.
all right.
Well,
So,
that's cool.
girls want to get into spoiler territory?
yes.
Yep.
All right. All right. So, this is your first time listening to us. Hello, welcome. Um,
Hi.
at the end of the episode, we give out homework for the next week's episode. Um, with that, we are getting ready to go into spoiler territory. If you have not watched The Babadook, it is available on Netflix at this given moment. By the time you listen to this, if you listen to it in the future, God knows where it's at. But it is on Netflix, and it's a quick watch, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's under 2 hours. I think it's an hour and a half.
It
So it's like
was.
shy over an hour and a half, you
Yep.
know? So in my book, like that you're getting an extra point right there. You get an hour and a half in and out. Sweet.
Yeah.
But we're getting ready to go into spoiler territory. So if you don't give a shit about that, stick around. And without any further ado, The Babadook.
Yay.
So with that being said, Stephanie,
Oh,
give me
you
that
want
1
you
out of
want
10.
wow, this doesn't happen very often. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, where am I at here? All right, here we go. Worst horror film I have ever watched in my whole life.
They have not watched a lot of horror films.
That's not what they said. I am a huge fan of horror movie.
Ooh.
So we'll see.
They
how this
really
goes.
like that one horror movie they saw.
Yeah.
The only other film they've watched is The Exorcist.
Gross. And so I'm expected, especially horror movie. So I expected, especially from reading IMDb review, that this one is going to be a cool movie comparing to the Orphanage, comparing to The Orphanage and also The Conjuring, which I recently watched in the theater and enjoyed a lot. But this one really make this is not. This
It
is
could be a younger
person.
person. Like, who knows?
No,
It
I
could-
think it's somebody who's English is their second language.
Okay.
But this one really make me wasting my time wondering why it got such a high rating here and making me doubt of the quality of the review. The movie plots have nothing, just a mother and boy walking around and around, trying to make you feel afraid, but not at all. Babadook is in fact nothing but a character in a book, and the movie does in no way make you feel mood in no way make you feel scary, even a bit. I am reading this word for word.
That's fine. It does, in fact, make me feel in mood a bit. So,
After
I love
tw-
it when we get like the 1 out of 10s that it makes it seem like they didn't pay attention to the movie.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like nothing happens.
they're
It's just a book character.
they're walking like they're just walking around and all this stuff. It's like there is definitely like regardless of like whether you like it or not, like to say that this movie does not have like a mood to it is like you have to be pretty checked out, I think, to not
Yeah.
pick up on
Yeah.
the mood that it's
Yeah.
trying to lay down.
After 20 minutes of watching, I began to wonder that it may have an amazing plot at the end that scare us. But after 30 minutes of watching, I began to feel desperate, and for the time left, I was wondering when it will end so I can go out to the theater and do something else. This one is really horrible and wasting your time. Do not watch it. I really regret the way to waste my time and money on this one.
So the way that they felt watching this is the way that you girls felt watching Pulse.
Probably.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, my God, please be over. Like,
Yeah.
And
And-
Smile.
Not much is happening.
oh shit, shots fired.
Ah, all right. Well,
Smile was horrible. Yeah, that was bad. And The Exorcist, that was horrible. Yeah, there's
if
a
you
lot
want
of
to, if
those
you want to hear
movies.
some hot takes on those movies, we have covered all those in our back catalog.
Yeah, they're terrible movies. So maybe you don't want to watch them. Tasha doesn't think Smile's terrible. I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm
don't give
sorry.
anything
again.
away. Stephanie's opinion is only her own. We all
That's
have our own
right.
opinions.
We all
on
have
the
our own
film.
opinion. That's right. But in my opinion, those
Stephanie's
movies are,
opinion is not opinion of Five
Yeah.
of the Dead as a whole.
yeah.
Yes, there you go.
Yes. There you go.
All right, let's hear that 10 out of 10.
There are movies that are loud and upfront with their horror, such as John Carpenter's Halloween, but then there are movies such as Jennifer Kent's The Babadook that are very subtle about their terror, playing off ideas and concepts that leave us a lasting impact hours after the film has ended.
I understand that sentiment because there are films that do that to me.
Yeah.
This one doesn't do that for me, but I can 100% see that stuff like really resonating with some people.
Yeah. This is not meant to bash the wonderful slasher that is Halloween, but instead praise The Babadook for its supreme use of tension and atmosphere to terrify the audience. In this film, Essie Davis plays Amelia, a single mom caring for her young son named Samuel, played by Noah Weissman, who is terrified of monsters, while at the same time dealing with her husband's death. One night, Samuel picks a book, Mr. Babadook, for Amelia to read. It talks about how the Babadook comes and scares kids. Both Amelia and Samuel appear to be terrified from the book. This intensifies the beginning of the horrifying journey. Jennifer Kent has orchestrated a haunting film that leaves a lasting impression. They put impressing and I got confused. From the use of high and low key lighting to amplify the tension of the film, each and every detail is of suspense. As a critique, most horror films nowadays tend to overplay their shock factor or quote jump scares in their film. While this might be horrifying, it does not leave a lasting impression. The Babadook achieves a perfect balance between horror and terror, leading us to an utterly terrifying masterpiece. I give Jennifer Kent's The Babadook a 10 out of 10.
Now, it's like I agree with most of that. Like it's just a matter of how well per person that
Right.
works, right?
Right.
But something that I think's funny and not at all like on purpose is that we just covered Sinister and then we cover this and it deals with these creatures in the back and we're dealing with children protagonists that aren't
Mhm.
necessarily our leads, but like it deals with that. And it's kind of like in there with The Conjuring. And
Yeah.
I actually just watched another movie this past weekend. I won't go into a lot of stuff, but it's called Moon Garden that deals with like a 5-year-old traversing all this stuff. And there's a creepy thing like hunting down the child. And when I was watching that, I was like, this is exactly what Tasha was talking about, what she wanted the creature from Sinister to be.
Oh,
Because,
okay.
because it literally does not have a face. It's
Cool.
like a white face, but then it's like a hole there and there's just teeth in there. And it's very effective.
That's closer to what I'm going for, yeah.
Yeah, like so if you haven't seen that, check that out. But yeah, like this film, like I think it does really good by like you don't see the creature in full form very often, as far as I remember. It's a lot of
Yeah.
in shadow, a lot of in form, a lot of silhouette crawling around. So
Yep.
in that sense, does it work better for you guys than the creature in Sinister?
Well, it works. It works better in the sense of like it's a crawling shadow. I don't think the execution was great.
Okay. How so?
It looked cheap.
You say you burn down the house if you got to. Like, say it.
I'm I'm sorry, crowdfunding people. It looked really cheap, and it
Okay.
took me out of it. Where it's like where the shadow in some parts just looks like it was drawn on like paint and color, like colored in, and then it's just creeping around. I didn't really care for that.
But wouldn't and this is, I'm not trying to change your mind, but doesn't that make more sense considering it's coming out of a pop-up book, that's how it looks in the book?
But it's not how it looks in the book. In the book, it has its face and everything. In this, it's just like, yeah,
Sometimes.
it might make sense. I just don't like it.
Okay, that's all. Yeah,
That's
I was
fine.
just
It's that easy.
yeah, no, like because I'm kind of like whatever. I like the silhouettiness of it and everything. This movie though, like kind of like with Sinister, where it's like, yeah, you see it and it could look cooler and whatever, right? But at the
Yeah,
end of the day, um, for me, it's just like I don't want to say forgettable, but it's just like passable. It's like, okay,
yeah,
whatever. Like where and sorry Tasha, not to shit on what you like, but like
shit on it.
with Smile when it does its thing and everything, it's not passable for me. It goes under passable and I'm just like, ugh. Where
I
this
didn't
one,
like that monster either.
yeah, but I'm just using that as like the because like Sinister, this are just like, okay, I don't go like that's fucking cool like when
Yeah.
you see the thing, right? So I'm trying to think of anything that's in this kind of set like of movies that when you do see the thing, it's like, oh, that's fucking creepy. And like for me personally, my brain goes back to that Moon Garden film that I just watched. Granted, I just fucking watched it yesterday. But like that's like you see it and you're like, that's fucking creepy. Like the movie itself is more like kid friendly and stuff,
Mm,
but it's really dark and it just looks fucking cool and creepy. Where
yeah.
yeah, like this one is yeah, it's like a guy with like face paint, and then like Sinister, it's a guy with a fucking Slipknot mask. You know,
Right.
like
I'm so like monster movies aren't my jam to begin with. And like things like this, it's hit or miss. I have like a very specific like what I'm looking for. And if it doesn't hit that mark,
for a
then it's just like
monster.
meh. For a monster, for a demon, for anything like that. I really liked, not to do too many comparisons to
No, I mean
Hereditary, which
I
I'm
think
sure
it's
will happen.
helpful. I think it's helpful though.
But I like how Hereditary did it, where it was the demon, but it was just like an orb. You
Yeah, you
never
don't
saw anything other than
correct.
the energy moving from place to place. And I really like how that's done because then it's just embodying the person instead of being like a thing that then somehow goes into a person. I don't like it when it's person looking,
So
when it
so
has arms and legs and stands tall.
see what like for that what works for me is the idea of, and it does this like in Talk to Me and stuff like that, where it can embody that like literal coat on the hanger in the corner of the room. Like I think it does that pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I forgot that it was. I never made that connection. I thought that was just supposed to trick us to be like, oh,
No,
there it is hanging on the wall.
it literally is that. Like it's that because it's the embodiment of the grief and loss and depression
Mhm.
of the husband, and that's his
Yeah.
like outfit that's downstairs. So it's embodying that.
Oh,
Yeah, the whole movie to me just felt like one big thing of where this woman hasn't dealt with her grief and
right.
moving on with her life. And this is what is manifested because of that. And that's why this random book shows up because it's like the embodiment of the grief that she's not dealing with. And as she goes to open the book and she reads on, it just consistently it gets worse and worse as she goes. And then she tries to burn it. And it's like you can't just get rid of grief. You can't shove it back. You can't burn it. You can't pretend that it doesn't exist. It's always going to come after you. And that's kind of like this. She doesn't want to sleep because when she sleeps, she probably has dreams or she has to deal with the all the horrors that she's not dealing with. As somebody who has dealt with a lot of grief in her life, I have nightmares and dreams all the time about my own grief stuff. So I can imagine sleeping, if you're dealing with that, is a problem, especially when she's and then lack of sleep causes you to go into like manic episodes and like all of this other stuff that kind of transpires. And then you have a child who's also dealing with his own stuff and manifests.
Ah!
Yeah.
He's the
And
worst.
so for me, the whole movie was just like literally an embodiment of whether the monster that's supposed to be like a shadowy version of her grief or whatever it is, I thought it was successful. I didn't think it was scary. I didn't think the movie was scary, but I liked the idea of the play on like this woman who is just trying to survive, and then she's just putting everything else besides herself and her mental health and her life on the back burner, and she's not taking care of herself, and she's got a son who's very needy and all of this stuff for rightful reasons. I mean,
Yep.
and so she's been a single mom because the dad died on the day that she gave birth, and she doesn't even celebrate her son's birthday on the day because of that, and like all this stuff. So I felt like that was a very good manifestation in this movie, that they definitely did a good job of playing up, like even the madness of like, I can't sleep, I have to, and then she also wants to make sure she takes care of her kid, and like at the same time she's worried about like what she's going to do, because this book is literally telling her this is what you're going to do, which is what people who are in manic episodes are probably in their mind going, I may do these things, this scares me because I am not okay, this could happen because I'm not okay. And so the book is basically showing her these things, and so I felt like in an artistic fashion, I thought it was done really, really well.
And there's something to be said too, that she may have created the book because she is an author. Like
Yes.
that gets brought up at the birthday party. That might be something like through her, just like all this stuff that she's created it and not even known it and everything. Like so
Ooh.
there's all of that, because at the end of the day, you're led to believe, like we're in spoiler, that the Babadook itself is not a real thing. It's a metaphor for depression and grief. And
That's up
like,
for debate for who's viewing it, but I look at it as that way.
yeah,
Yes.
the only thing that makes you kind of go, huh, is the scene where she like feeds it the bowl of bugs at the end, because it makes you feel like it's still real, but at the same time that could
But
be
it
a
makes
metaphor.
sense.
Yeah, but it could be the metaphor of it's you're never rid of these things. You
Correct.
just learn how to deal with it.
Yep.
Like
And
you,
Mm.
and they locked him in the basement where all of her husband's stuff was, and so it
correct.
makes sense. And then the whole idea of like it dying and then feeding it worms, because worms eat the dead, so
Yeah.
like the idea of doing that, the symbolism there, I think
Yeah,
is really smart.
yeah, I fucking love it. Like that, all of that stuff, I think, is really well done.
Yeah.
Because the way Wesley watched most of this movie with us, I think he missed just like the very beginning. Is that
Yeah, I
right?
think so. Yeah.
But he fucking loved it because this movie was basically Home Alone meets Hereditary.
Kind
Because
of.
when that kid
Yeah.
goes ham with like his fucking catapult and his fucking dart gun and all this shit,
He
like it's just
stabs his
like
mom in the leg.
yeah. And there is one scene in this movie that, and I'd never seen this, so I knew kind of what the tone and everything of this film was, but the one scene that fucking like I was like, that's fucking creepy and done really well, is after she talks to the old lady next door and she comes into the kitchen to talk to her son and everything. She's like, everything's okay, it'll be all right. I just want you to go where your dad is. Like that whole
Hmm.
scene is just like, oh my fucking god. Like she's literally talking to this kid about how she's going to kill him, but it's
Yeah.
done in such like an eloquent way that it's like double speak. Like
Hmm.
it's just like, oh shit. And then he stabs her in the legs. Ah, I'm sorry, mom, I gotta save you. Because like
Yeah.
yeah, the first quarter of this movie, I'm just like this fucking kid. But
Yeah.
once you're
Mhm.
like, oh no, he's right. He is trying to save her from this stuff. I'm like, fucking get her, kid. Fucking get her.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, he also talks about in the movie, like talking about monsters, and maybe the monster is the idea that his mom's getting worse, and like he knows the monster's coming, and he knows
hmm
that his mom's turning, and he can feel like the tension building and like all
yeah.
that, because kids are very in tune with their children, their parents, right? Especially when they're that close. And so he, as much as like I don't care for kids in most movies, and he had very obnoxious moments, his screaming is so fucking on point. Like
Mm.
I have to give this kid some credit for just his ability to act completely obnoxious and scream as well as he did. And just, it was so successful in the sense of like, he really did like make you feel that he was like that. So
Yeah.
like it didn't feel pretend. It felt like he was actually like a kid having a temper tantrum. And I really
Yeah.
appreciated that, because a lot of times it doesn't feel that
Yeah,
way.
that and like his cowering when he cowers like in the corner
Hmm.
and stuff like that.
Mm.
It instantly, like as a parent, I'm like, poor guy. Like I just feel
Yeah.
so fucking bad for him.
Yeah.
And so many times, like you were saying, it can just be fucking bad. And like this kid fucking knocks it all the way out of the park in that.
Yep.
Now, like being annoyed by the kid, like that's the point of it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be wearing you down because you're supposed to be uh, like kind of relating to the mother in this
Hmm.
film, but then like the mother becomes the bad guy. Like it's a very
Hmm.
interesting like narrative how they do that. That it makes you like, oh, I fucking can't stand this kid. I don't know how she fucking lives with this. And then you're like, oh, it makes sense why the kid's this way. Everyone that comes in contact with this kid is like, I can't hang out with you anymore because you're fucking kid, right? Like
Hmm.
Yeah.
to the point where he pushes a little girl out of a treehouse on her birthday,
Rightfully so.
rightfully
Yeah.
so, because
She deserved
she's
it.
She
straight up
totally
telling
deserved
him
it.
that like you don't deserve to have a dad. He died because he
Right.
doesn't want to be around you. All this shit, and
Yeah.
then
She's lucky that's all that happened to her.
yeah, the scene that makes me laugh hilarious. Like I laugh so many times in this movie, not because it's like cheesy, but just like, oh my god, to put myself in that situation, I'm just like uncomfortable. Like when the guy comes over and is like wanting to like
Oh my
maybe
god.
like date her or whatever, and brings like
Yeah.
the fucking like model kit and everything, and he's just like the boy is just losing his fucking
Oh.
mind and everything, and he's just like next scene he's gone. He just like pieces
Yeah.
out. I'm just like, oh my god, I just don't even know how to fucking react to this movie half the time because
Yeah.
I'm literally like belly laughing at scenes. Like when she's laying in bed and the son's like, hey mom, can we do this? And she's just like, I'm
Yeah.
hungry. Can I get breakfast? She's like, why don't you eat shit? I was literally like, holy shit, Jesus Christ. Like, what the fuck, man? But when you think about like literal, like I deal with depression and stuff like that. Now I've never done that, right? But so much can just trigger you nonstop, and you
Yep.
have to fucking like hold that shit back because you don't want to ruin your child.
That to
Yep.
happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like when that happens, it's like I've fucking been there. I have 100% been there where
Yep.
I
Me too.
Mhm.
want, I want to say these things. I want to do this, and Jennifer was approached by many women that had seen this film and was like, "Thank you for doing this because I thought I was the only person that felt
Mm.
this way with my children." And
Yep.
stuff, and it's nice, not that I think it's acceptable, but it's nice to know I'm not alone, because being and it was specifically mothers, being a mother is fucking hard, and I
Yeah.
want to fucking kill my kids sometimes, and like that's what they fucking showed, like, and
That's true.
whether it's acceptable to be like, I wish you were fucking dead, obviously not acceptable,
No.
Yeah.
but like but like it is, it's like this, that's what this movie does so beautifully, is it's so relatable to the things no one wants to say out loud,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
just says it out loud. It's a very human film. Like
Yeah.
that's the big thing. I think it's a lot more relatable if you're open to it, right? Like if you're just expecting this to be the next like bah kind of film, yeah, you're not gonna fucking get that.
Mm-mm.
But
Mm-mm.
like yeah, with like Hereditary, It Follows, all of that kind of stuff, yeah, it makes sense. Is it as
Mhm.
sad as other things? That's up to the viewer. If you had lost a husband and been through, I can only imagine how devastating this film
Mhm.
could be to
Yeah.
someone when relating to that.
Yeah, I agree. It was a interesting movie, and you have like I had to sit with it for a long time just to kind of piece apart things to build your own conclusion, because it's and then the kid in this, like you are like we said, he is obnoxious. But at the same time, he is the most honest of all of the characters in this movie
Yep.
as well, because he is just very forward about how he feels, what's going on. Like he is just in his own childhood way, but like he is very upfront, like, well, I heard you were sick. I'm not sick. Like when the guy
Yeah.
comes in, like he's just very, this is not it. And then like the whole idea of like when they're talking to the people for whatever that comes to talk to them about him not
Like
being in
Child
school,
Protective Services, kind
kind
of.
of, yeah. And he's like, yeah, we're having a birthday because my dad died on my blah, 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 blah. And like he's just like telling his whole story, like, and
Yeah.
he's just very forward about it. And I almost wonder if like his character's like this because his mom isn't. She's very much like coddling and like, you know, doesn't want to
Well, and
talk about the feelings and deal with the stuff.
and
So,
every time he speaks to anybody, she's always going like, I'm sorry. No matter what he's saying, like at the
Right.
supermarket, I'm sorry about my son. I'm sorry about my son. Instead of being like a parent and being like, yeah, that is true, and like actually having a conversation and everything, which you
yeah.
do see at the end. Like if they this is part of our life. This is, instead of being so angry at the cards you're dealt in life,
Hmm.
they finally, like, she finally reconciles with the fact of, your father is dead, my husband is dead, this is our life now. And instead of using that as a shadow that hangs over us, accepting life as it is and moving on. Doesn't moving on does not mean forgetting. Like, that's the big
Right.
thing that I think a lot of people kind of confuse. But also, like, her friend being like, it's been 7 years, you need to move on. This is never helpful, right? Because people process things differently. Granted, she's not processing it well at
No,
all. And a
no.
proper friend should have been like, hey, do you need help? Instead of, and she calls her out on it, being so wrapped up in her own life and everything. Don't, like, PSA for friends out there, don't pretend you care. Like, that's such a problem, I think. If you're so wrapped up in your own life and stuff, I think it's almost worse to be like, yeah, like, if you ever need help, let me know. And then, like, when someone was trying to reach out for help, you're like, I'm too busy. It's like, it's better to not offer the help than to
Yeah.
offer it and turn people away. Like,
Yeah.
be honest with your friends and family and stuff like that. And it goes both ways. If you're having problems, it, like, there are people out there that will talk to you. And I've offered this a million times, so I'm going to offer it to our listeners. If you just need someone to talk to, if you are dealing with things, our email is always open. So it's potofthedead666 at gmail.com. Hit us up. I'm not a therapist. None of us are, I'm not going to
I
tell
mean,
you.
Tasha kind of is, but
Tasha definitely has the better background and
Closer,
everything.
I guess.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you just need to vent and you need someone to talk to, we're not here to fix things. But I will tell you right now, one of us will fucking, like, be like, oh yeah, no, I understand. I've been through this and everything, and maybe point you in a direction that is helpful. So, like, usually, not everybody does have family and friends that they can speak to and everything,
That's
but they
true.
are there. There is someone out there,
Well, in
even,
this movie is the neighbor.
yeah, 100%. There
Yeah.
is somebody that does give a shit about you, whether you know it or not,
Yeah.
so, and I'm here to say we give a shit about you.
Yeah.
So,
And to add on to that, to someone who might hear that but still not believe it, I'm a recovering person that does that. You're not a burden.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
explicitly saying it, you're not a burden. We want to hear it. I think that can be helpful too.
Hmm.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, because so many people are just like, I don't want to bother others with
Right.
my problems. And you're not bothering them because people do worry about other people. So just, like, kind of being like, hey, man, I'm having a bad time.
Yep.
Hey, man, I'll fuck. Because okay. Super side tangent stuff, right?
Yeah.
I deal with, like, chronic depression and anxiety, right? So, like, once I actually finally, after an entire lifetime of dealing with this, finally getting rightfully diagnosed and stuff like that, I instantly became loud about it, going,
Hmm.
hey, instead of being like, don't tell anybody you're depressed, just being very open about it, because that makes people more comfortable with, like, hey, yeah, like, and I've had friends like, hey, you've dealt with this stuff, right? And I'm like, yeah, what do you need? Like, I can point you the way that I went, and you can get the help that you need. If you want to talk to me about how you feel about things, I'm here to listen. I'm not here to tell you right and wrong. I am here to listen, though, and give you my viewpoint on it. I'm very open about that kind of stuff. But yeah, like, there are always people. You're not alone. You're not the only person
No.
that feels the way you do. Like, and there are more people out there that will give a shit than you believe.
Yeah.
Agreed. I agree.
PSA over.
Okay.
Okay, so we've heard the 1 out of 10s. We've heard the 10 out of 10s, right? So let's see what, like, the actual the actual critics have to say about this film, right? So on Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds. Now, okay, before I get into this, do not allow this to sway your girl's ratings of the film.
I'm not. I already wrote
I
my
know,
review
I
down.
know. Obviously, I just
Yep.
got to say it. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 98% based on
Oh, wow.
200,
Dude.
247 reviews, with an average rating of 8.2 out of 10. With a
Oh, wow.
critical consensus reading, The Babadook relies on real horror rather than cheap jump scares, and boasts a heartfelt, genuine, moving story to boot. It was ranked the best reviewed horror film and third best reviewed film of 2014 on the site. As of 2022, Rotten Tomatoes ranks The Babadook the 13th best horror film of all time. On
Wow.
Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 86 out of 100 with 100% positive reviews based on 34 critics.
Mm,
Wow.
Glenn Kenny, writer of RogerEbert.com, called the film the finest, most genuinely provocative horror movie to emerge in this still very new century. Dan Schneidel of Movie Mezzanine said, "The Babadook is the best genre creature feature since the big black wolf dog aliens from Attack the Block." In The Guardian, Peter Bradshaw described the film as a Freudian thriller, giving it
yeah.
4 out of 5 stars and praised the performance, themes, and Kent's direction. Bradshaw said that Kent exerts a masterly control over the tense situation, and sound design is terrifically good, creating a haunted, insidious, whispery intimacy that never relies on sudden volume hikes for the scares. In
True.
Variety, Scott Foundas commented the production design and direction, saying that the film manages to deliver real seat-grabbing jolts while also touching on more serious themes of loss, grief, and other demons that cannot be so easily vanquished.
Mhm.
So, like when I was saying, like this movie is widely like
Well, it's
considered great.
wow.
So,
I
it's
think it's
interesting to
just
see
because
that.
I think it's just because it isn't surface level. I think that it's very artistic. You have to go into it like if you go into it thinking it's only one thing, it's fine. And you may appreciate it for that one thing. But if you actually dissect it and you go, okay, so it comes out of a closet. Well, does it, it's like coming out and dealing with it. Like there's all these other metaphors in this movie of just things that make sense as to like why it was intentionally done. And okay, so we've watched this movie was written and like made by the same woman, right?
Went and
Like
directed. Yep.
she did all of it. Okay. So we've watched a lot of movies recently that have been written and directed by the same person, right?
Correct.
This is probably the first one that didn't have a bunch of shit in it that was like unnecessary or super. There was a few spots I was like, what are we getting to? Why is this? But it seems after you watch it for a while, you realize it's purposeful and it makes sense. But like, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. So there's a lot of times when people just because they are so enmeshed with their storyline and they love it so much, they won't cut stuff, they
Mm-hmm.
won't fix stuff, they don't take criticism, and they're just going to make a 2 hour and plus minute movie called Terrifier 2. And and so that happens, and then you're left going, what the fuck? And this one doesn't do that, which I think is more successful.
That being said, though, like using Terrifier 2 as our descript or our
It's
what
not the
is it?
same
Our
kind of
benchmark.
movie.
Yeah, our
I
benchmark.
know.
He edited and everything that as well. So that's like this woman wrote and directed. So there's still an editor. There's still people like
There's
going
still
like,
a team
But
yes.
overseeing.
But she
I
also
100% understand what you're saying, though.
but she also allowed that because if you think about it,
Correct.
she could have been like, no, this is my baby, I
Mhm.
know best. He could have
100.
been like, this is my baby, but I don't know best, I need a critical eye
Mhm.
because I'm too close to this. It's no different than what I do for my job. I send my book off to an editor and to beta readers and all this stuff, and I'm like, I have come out to them and they're like, well, I'm sorry if I criticize this or whatever, and I'm like, dude,
The
I
point of it.
don't know if it
Yeah.
doesn't fucking exist if you don't tell me it doesn't exist,
Right.
because I am too close to the project. I cannot give I can't get your feedback and be offended by it if I don't know what the feedback is, and I'm not going to be offended by it because even if I don't agree with it, I still have to know it exists. So then if I choose to change it, I can. And I appreciate that about this film, that obviously the person that created it goes, I care about this enough to recognize that I am so close to this that I also need other people's hands in the pot in order to make this a better film and more successful as a whole. So
Yeah.
that's the way
It's
I look at it.
it's one of those things that like there are very few bands that are solely run by like one person. So like early Nine Inch Nails, right? It's all just Trent Reznor. Like that's
Yeah.
what it is. And that's very small that like that kind of stuff happens where it's like a sole thing and it works.
Mhm.
Most like it's like a band, you know, like this and like critical takes on this. What if you tried this? What if you tried that and everything? Sometimes that works really well. Sometimes it doesn't. And in this case, it works really well. In other cases, it doesn't, you know?
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, because I can't
It's
imagine how bloated this film could have gotten.
Mhm.
mm. It's funny stuff how you mentioned like you can watch it for one thing and that's okay. You guys and I watched a completely different movie.
See, that's what I wondered. I wondered. Yeah,
Yeah.
that happens a lot between all of us. So
Yeah. And I think it takes into account like your preparedness for a movie like this. I watched it on a Friday after work. I watched it because I had to watch it. I wasn't
yeah,
like in the mood for a movie like that. And I think if you're not in the mood for that, it'll still resonate, but it'll resonate in a different way. It'll resonate as a possession monster movie. It won't
okay.
You won't pick up on any metaphor. So I think that 1 out of 10 watched it expecting something, and that's what they got on a on a chintzy way of doing it instead of getting the deeper meaning. So when you get the deeper meaning, all of the visual aspects don't necessarily matter as much because you're
Correct,
getting
yeah.
that
Yeah.
behind the scenes component. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the metaphor, the actual
Right.
underlying narrative is what
Yep.
makes this movie what it is.
Yeah.
If it were solely just like, you know,
Like a
fucking
boogeyman or something
Right.
like
yeah,
that.
it would not fucking work. It would
Mm-mm.
suck.
Which
Yeah.
is how I got it. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I can see that, like, if you're not, and you're going into it expecting it to be like a possession boogeyman movie, because when I first started watching it, I'm not gonna lie, I legitimately was like, that's what we're watching right now. Like,
Yeah.
a book randomly fucking shows up, and then this is what we're fucking getting. But as you like go and you pay attention to like all the little subtle cues and like all the little tidbits that this shows, and like very detail oriented and all of that, you definitely pick up on more. And then after the movie is when I really dissected it more, because like I was like, why is there fucking worms being fed in the basement? As you know, why are we doing this? And I'm like, oh well, that's where the husband's stuff is. And like the idea of like you're feeding your, you know, you're not, it's still, it always exists. You're, you know,
Your inner
the
demons. You're
yeah,
literally
exactly.
feeding your inner demons.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And it's like that idea. So
and seeing it from the other side, a basement's a general location where they always hide the body.
yeah.
So you can look at it from that way
Yeah.
too. Of
Yeah.
it doesn't matter that the dad's stuff's down there. It's a basement.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
It-
and it's definitely a good play on that, because like I said, people are gonna watch this movie and get two completely different perspectives for that reason.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, if I would have went into this expecting, let me think of a movie, expecting literally like you said, like the Boogeyman kind of thing, right? Because there is a movie that came out like just a year or so ago called The Boogeyman, and
Mhm.
it's more of like that actual thing, but it was done well. But like if this was attempting to be that, it would have sucked. Like it's flat out, it would have sucked. But
Yeah.
going back to like, you know, like how well regarded this film is and stuff. Um, what is it? Rotten Tomatoes. They had a list of the best horror films of the 2010s. This came in fourth, right behind Get Out,
Okay.
The Wailing, which is a Korean, I believe it's Korean horror film, and then Under the Shadow, which looked like it was an Indian horror film.
Okay.
So like, yeah, this is like I can 100% see like not that they're similar, but like tone and like what am I actually watching when you get with like Get Out. So
Yeah.
it's like as it sits, just like the base layer is like okay, but it's all the building blocks underneath that's like
Mhm.
makes that movie a lot better than its surface level. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, I
so.
agree.
All
Okay.
right, let me see if I got anything else. Oh, there is one cringy thing in this movie, and I found what it was. So
Okay.
like every time the Babadook shows up and everything, and it's dealing like they're dealing with it, it has a scream. It is like the
Oh, yeah.
most intrusive, like. "Rah!" So the movie actually has a lot of like samples from video games, and
Okay.
that specific sound is from Warcraft 2. It is the sound of a fucking dragon
Okay.
in
Oh,
the game, and like every time it happened, I'm like,
okay.
I have heard that fucking sound.
Oh,
There's sounds from like Mortal Kombat in this movie and stuff. It's
huh.
Okay.
really strange, and I didn't see anything talking about why those were choices made, but they
Hmm.
were. Because that's like when it does that kind of noise, like that screechy kind of thing, it instantly is just like, I'm not about that.
Yeah.
I do like the sound though of like the skittering like bugs noises and
Mm,
stuff like
yeah.
that. I do really like that. I think that was effective. But yeah, yeah, dragon noises. What?
Yep.
Okay. Well,
I
So,
guess
but
somebody listened to it and said, "We need that in our movie."
yeah.
I need it. I love that game. I need it.
Yeah.
So, you girls want to get into our reviews on the film?
Sure.
Yep.
All right, let's bust this out. I'll start.
Okay.
Well, actually, before I get into that, there was one last little thing. We've talked about the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards before and stuff like that, like in the past, and that's always one that I like to bring up because uh, they actually give a shit about horror films. You're not going to see a lot of horror films that get Emmy nominations and Oscar, all that kind of shit, or
Yeah.
Oscars. Emmys, I think, is music. I don't pay attention to any of that shit.
No, the
I don't
Grammys are
either.
music. It's
Grammys.
TV. I think
Okay.
it's TV.
Okay.
Okay.
But the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards, every single thing that this was nominated for, it won.
Oh,
It
Oh
wow.
wow.
it
Okay.
won Best Supporting Actor with Noah Wiseman. It won
Oh,
Best Actress with Essie Davis. It won Best Screenplay and Best Limited Release Direct to Video Film. So,
Okay.
yeah, it got like because it did get a wide release and everything, but it also like it's one of those things that like it came out for like so much time and then it went to video on demand and then
Yeah.
like how the smaller
Like
films
some of
tend.
them do. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I saw that and I was like, holy shit! It just like nominated one, nominated one. Not, I was like,
hmm.
good for this movie.
Yeah. That's true.
So all that being said, for like tone and stuff, like I like the vibe of the film. I like the time that it runs. It doesn't overstay its welcome because like if you added a half hour to this film, like say Hereditary, like I'll draw that line, right? If you made this film as long as you did Hereditary, it doesn't have the bones to give
True.
it
To
an extra half
carry.
hour. It
Yeah.
does everything it needs to do in that time frame. Like it does
True.
not overstay its welcome in my book. Um, the the only death in this was the dog, which was sad.
Yeah. That was sad.
Yeah.
But we knew that that shit was gonna happen. Like, and there was the jump scares in the film as they did not work on me or whatever, but I
Me
think
neither.
that they were done well. Like the when she looks over at her son's dead, and then the boy's screaming and she's holding the knife, and he's actually. I think that that is such a fucking cool thing. Like I
Hmm.
really thought that was effective and everything. Um, I would suggest people check this out personally. If you haven't seen it and everything, this is definitely one like you've watched Hereditary, you've watched Get Out, you've watched Midsummer. It's like, have you seen The Babadook? Because it's in that like that vein. You should probably check it out. With all that being said, I'm giving the
Don't.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
oof. That was a
Honey.
close one.
Oh yeah.
Shame on
What
you.
what do you girls think I gave The
Gosh.
Babadook? I already
That was
gave you all
so
that stuff, so
close.
that's going to definitely color your.
I'm gonna
Okay.
say you're gonna give it a 7.5.
Okay.
7.75.
I'm giving it a 7.
Okay.
Oh,
I was kind of weighing it like yeah it was like in that 7.5 area and stuff and I was like there were certain things that I didn't really care for it so I toned it down a little bit like I
Mhm.
said like the screechy noise and stuff like that and there's a lot in this film that I really like really like but there are certain things that I'm not crazy about and I
Mhm.
can't put my finger on exactly what all of them are but like for me an 8 is like something that I'm just like I fuck with that movie. I want a poster of it like in my
Mhm.
office kind of thing. I wouldn't do that with this
I agree.
personally, but I can
Yeah.
see someone just being like 10 out of 10. This is fucking amazing. I
Yeah.
can see it.
I agree.
All
Okay.
right. All right, Steph, what do you got? I'm going to guess that you give this movie a 7.25.
I think 6.5.
Tasha's right. I gave
Okay.
it 6.5. I think this movie's good. I would rewatch it. And get a different perspective of it the next time I watched it. I don't plan on watching it anytime soon. It's not one of those things that's going to be like a comfort watch I'm going to watch regularly. I mean, just the screaming alone would prevent me from doing
Yeah.
that. But I thought it was a really good movie based around grief, and I thought they did a really good job. The acting was done well. I thought for the budget, it was definitely done well,
Yeah.
and I don't have any complaints. Like I already talked about how I felt about the movie overall, and I would say a 6.5 for me is pretty fair. I was kind of when I first finished it until I had to kind of break it down, I was like, maybe this is a 5.5. But then after I thought about it a lot more and like recognized a lot of the things that were part of this and how smart I think the film is written wise, and then actually put together properly, um, that was what got me up to a 6.5. So there you go.
Respectable.
Yeah.
Tasha's giving it a 5.
I think Tasha's giving it, yeah, I think she's giving it a 5.
You guys are right. I'm giving it a 5.
Yeah.
Before you go into all of it,
Yeah.
because you gave it your score before we started recording, right? Like you
No?
came up with the score in your head before.
Oh, yeah.
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 So upon second viewing, do you think it would maybe be higher?
Yes.
Okay,
So I'm
go on.
giving it a 5. I'm giving it a 5 because that is roughly the score I give. It's a movie that I will give a second chance to.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
So, like I said, which I love Hereditary. I love Midsummer. I think a lot of it was to do with, okay, now it's time to watch this movie. And I didn't let it see.
Wash over you.
I wasn't as present as I usually am upon watching movies because, like I said, it was a surface level. I knew there was a descent into madness with Mom, but the metaphor of the Babadook being grief, I didn't necessarily, that didn't resonate.
You didn't
and that
pick up
whole
on it.
story tone, yeah, that whole storyline went over my head. It was the Babadook is this creature somehow possessing Mom, and that's what the movie was.
Got ya.
Okay. Yeah.
Now I have extra homework for you by the end of the year. Okay, because
Yeah.
we tend to do like our kind of year-end roundup Gaiden episode. If you can squeeze this movie in again by the end of the year, I would love to hear your second take on it.
Yeah,
Having like kind of like, oh, this is actually what it's about.
right.
It's you
and
could come
watch
back
it
and
with
be
Drew because it sounds like you didn't watch it with Drew.
I did, and that might have
okay.
another, though I will say when we were talking about previous information, I forgot about this part. He had seen it and he doesn't like it. So I didn't, that's not necessarily, I don't want to think that swayed me, but
No, I
going
get it.
into it, there wasn't like the conversation.
correct.
It was almost as if I had watched it by myself because he was like, I'm here. I don't really
Yeah.
care for this movie
I get
like
it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% get that. Like, because
Yeah.
it's not for everybody. Like, no horror film is for everybody, you know?
And
Except-
this is a
except
movie
The
worth
Thing.
talking about, I think.
Yeah,
Except
oh,
The Thing.
Yeah, The Thing is for everybody. It's got
No.
everything. It's got Kurt Russell.
It's got
Glo-
everything.
It's got Gloop. It's got fucking
No.
Wade. Wade is in the movie. You know, like our dog Wade is in the film.
No.
It's like Sky Mall.
Yeah,
Has
it's fucking
everything.
great. So what's that give
So
us?
that gives the Babadook a 62%.
I think
Most
it's
passing.
I think that's fair, you know. Like people really fucking like this movie. But at the same time, I can't believe when I see like, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes kind of thing from critics, right?
Mhm.
That to me, like when it comes to like a film, it's like everybody's gonna fucking love this movie. There's no way. Like this movie, like just the kid alone is
Right.
gonna turn people off of this movie.
Mhm.
But
That went into my score too. Was
Yeah,
like, I can't listen to this fucking kid.
but it makes so much more sense when you understand like what the whole point of the film is. So
Yeah.
it's like I would turn this on and most people like expecting The Conjuring or something would get fucking 20 minutes in this film. Excuse me. My soda is kicking up. That kid's gonna turn you off
Mhm.
instantly, and that's actually kind of why I was really reticent of watching this in the first place way back, was just because all I'd ever seen was this kid screaming in the car, and I was like, I don't know if I can deal with this.
Yeah.
Taking
But-
fucking weapons to school. And,
See, now I love that shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what'd you say it was, a 60 what
2.
62? I think that's fair.
62.
Like you're more than likely gonna like this. Like if you listen to us and you like what
Right.
we talk, like yeah, I think that is 100% fair. I would love to hear what other people's take is on this. So
Yeah.
if you listen to us, obviously you're hearing this, and you want to tell us what you thought of this film, send us an email at potofthedead666@gmail.com. Send us like a movie maybe that you want us to watch. The only criteria is that you have had to have watched it. Do not
Yes.
give us Puppet Master 7 because you think it's funny to give us shitty movies that you yourself, the Ginger Dead Man,
Yeah.
I have seen Ginger Dead Man versus Evil Bong. I'm not gonna drag that up because,
Thank you. Thank you.
but if
No,
enough
thank
people,
you.
if enough people have watched it, Terrifier 2 happened, so just
Right.
That's like a really good rec. I'm waiting for a movie that's gonna get me in the 8s category. Like,
I'm
give me
waiting for a
something
movie
in
to
the
give you a 10. You need to be more
yeah.
liberal with your scoring. God
No,
damn it.
I
Yes,
can do
you
whatever
do.
the fuck I want.
Whatever. Not in this podcast. No, I'm just kidding. So, yeah.
I will say though, there is like a calibration I give to Steph where it's like, okay, I think she likes it. Where like I would give it this score if I liked it, then I have to knock it down like a point,
100%.
maybe a point and a half.
I do that with both of you. I go like, I know what you're capable of giving films. Like Steph is way more. Well, Tasha's way off the fucking thing.
I'm
She
the
gives
whole
tens and ones.
She's worse than me. Yeah.
She's tens and ones, but is very specific with what she likes. Like,
Yes. Yes.
I am definitely like on the higher side, and I give way
Yes.
more horror films a chance.
You do.
And then Steph is like, I will never give any film ever a 10.
Just on principle.
but I'll give everything a chance. So like we're all over the
Yes.
fucking board on
Yeah.
that shit.
Well, I'm like that with books too. Like everybody's like, why don't you give more 5 stars? Because most books don't deserve that for me when I read them, unless it makes me have all the feels and I can't stop reading it. So like 3 and 4 stars, pretty average for me across the board.
Out of
It's
5.
Yeah, out of 5. Sorry. Yeah, that's
Out
true.
of 20.
Yeah. And that's kind of the same thing right here with us when we're watching the podcast. I mean, that for our movies, it's the same thing. It's like that, like very centralized rating system, very hard to get high. And then if it's below, I'm still trying to be nice. Like I'm, trying to be. Sometimes it's hard.
a big thing for me, this is whatever. We'll talk about this in the bonus stuff, the Patreon stuff, right?
Okay.
Like, we'll really get into that because
Okay.
I got some stuff to talk about with that.
Okay.
But
Okay.
let's give out homework for next week.
Okay. That sounds good.
Next week will be our 50th movie reviewed episode.
Yay.
So
Congratulations, guys.
I know we made it, and it's actually a request from one of our children.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I already had it on the list for this year, so I just moved it up.
Okay.
We will be watching Immaculate that
Okay.
came out this year. This will be our most recent film.
Okay.
It came out earlier this year.
And it is streaming.
I have seen this. Yep, it just hit Hulu. So what happened was Maya was like, "Hey, you guys should cover Immaculate," because I went and saw it with her in theaters because she wanted to see it because she likes Sydney Sweeney. So she didn't give a shit what it was. It was a new Sydney Sweeney movie. And my rule of thumb is if it's a horror film, you guys want to see it, let me know, and I'll make it happen. So we went and saw it. I had it planned for like December, I think. And she said, it just hit Hulu. And I was like, okay, well, I'll move it up then. All right. So that's what we'll be watching. Immaculate.
Okay.
It's a nun horror film. I'll just tell you
Great.
that. Well,
Yep.
I mean, it's not The
Okay.
Exorcist. It's not The Exorcist.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's
She
not.
really liked it.
Okay,
So.
listen here, guys.
I'm here,
okay?
so I'm gonna give it a try.
That's
Yeah.
right. Now listen here. I take into consideration you girls so much. Okay, I'm not giving you the 70s at all anymore.
Thank you.
Right? I keep the 80s less. You know,
the 80s aren't bad most of the time.
But see, here the thing is,
do you want some more 80s films right now?
I'm fine with the 80s
Okay,
films.
okay, all right. Maybe I'll move some. shit
Tasha's
around.
not. She
I
doesn't
know.
like most of the 80s films. I like most of them.
Steph, what? We almost got
why are
away.
you talking?
The 90s ones are the best, probably.
Okay.
God,
and then
no, those-
moving forward.
Oh.
90s and
90s
early
are-
2000s.
Yeah.
Oh God, the early 2000s. Jesus fucking Christ. But we cover them. We cover everything. Unless somebody brings up a 70s horror film. There's only one other 70s horror film that we may cover eventually. Just because, we're not a horror history class, but it's like Halloween's out there, like we'll cover it one day. I'm not chomping at the bit. Everybody's covered Halloween,
Yeah.
I try to things that people are interested in, make it a little more, maybe something that you girls will like. Maybe. Not always.
Okay.
Sometimes I gotta put a film in there that I just want to fucking watch. I'm talking to you, Dead Alive.
Yep. That was a movie.
All right.
Yes. So,
Okay.
For Pot of the Dead, I am Nicholas.
I'm Stephanie.
I'm Natasha.
Come back and listen to us, or else. All right. Pot of the Dead After Dark.
Okay.
Ooh, you guys got your drinks? Hey.
No.
The air is full of
It's
smoke.
Got my water.
There we go.
it's noon, honey. It's
It's almost 1. It's 12:38.
Can clearly see the sunlight out my window.
The jazz music is kicking up. Ooh.
Nothing
like a
has changed from
Oh.
30 seconds previously.
In the video format, like
Right.
how you get this is literally just the video format is basically unedited. Like it just
Yeah.
goes.
That's awesome.
But
good. I'm happy for you guys watching this.
yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you for your hard-earned dollars.
Yeah.
But what were we talking about? Oh yeah.
Okay.
Things to give, like once I start getting over going back to what we were talking about, how we rate movies and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What will always give a movie an extra point? So it's like I'm at 8, maybe, or maybe I'm at 7,
Okay.
is when it just sits with me and I'm thinking about the movie well
Yeah.
after watching it. That's why something like
Yeah.
something like Pulse, I gave a higher score than you girls can even fathom.
Yeah. It's just not good.
Because it posed interesting things for me to think about. That's why, Talk to Me is where it is for me. And there's certain films that like will just get that because prime example, The Black Coat's Daughter. I thought about that movie for weeks after watching it.
I
Whoa.
didn't think about it after a couple days.
It was
so
it was the
that's good.
tone. It was the tone.
I
and
don't
the
remember
feel.
really anything.
Yeah.
It's the reason Long Legs is currently
Yeah.
my favorite horror film that's come out this year because it
Okay.
just like is in my fucking head. The vibe of it, not necessarily the narrative. It's just the film as a piece of media. Just like, man, that was fucking all right.
I understand that as far as like books go. I
Yeah.
don't think I rate movies as strictly as I do books, but there are books that have sat with me for years that I love because of that feeling. But I don't know, I don't really get that so much with movies.
I get that with
understand what
every
you're saying.
books, movies, albums, all that stuff. Like if I listen to an album and like I walk off and I catch myself like recalling, not necessarily just like ooh doo doo doo, but just being like, man, that was a fucking badass album. That was I really like. You know what? I need to listen to that right now. Like that kind of stuff
Mhm.
is something that always does it. So like for like the Babadook, it's 7 because I watched it and it didn't do that. So like that for me, unless it's going to be just like fucking visually cool, right? So like Reanimator for me, obviously, Reanimator gets an
definitely just for you.
well, like Reanimator gets like an 8 or 8.5. I'm somewhere in there, right? When we
Yeah.
reviewed it, but it's because visually and everything is fucking awesome. But it doesn't sit with me like the vibe of it and stuff. It's like, oh, it's just cool because it's cool. Like that's like
Yeah.
where it
Yeah.
gets it. If
Yeah.
there was something to it with tone and all that stuff, and I'm like sitting there going like, that was fucking creepy or that was unsettling, I bumped that shit up an extra point. Now we're talking about that 8 movie now being a 9. That's where like a 9 becomes a 10. That's where like you get for me like The Thing. I've seen it a million times. Visually, yeah, fucking all sorts of gloopy and stuff. But what really sits with me that like has always made me think about it is just like the paranoia that it builds.
Okay.
And that's what sits with me. Granted, I'm not paranoid in it anymore or whatever,
Mhm.
but it conveys that so well, and that's
Yeah.
why it gets where it gets.
Well, I try to think of the movies that we've watched that has sit with me for periods of time, like that are horror movies, obviously. And I always go back to The Night House. That movie I still think about,
Hmm.
and I don't think it's the greatest film, but I do agree that like that is something that sits with me. Knock at the Cabin also sits with me. There's a lot we haven't watched that for the podcast, but like that movie just definitely sits there. Yeah, there's a few of them that kind of just
Now,
I don't know why. The
Did, like,
Blob.
the
I don't know
Blob.
why. I don't know why. I do think about that movie pretty often, and
Huh.
I don't even know why. I just really liked it. I just weird.
Now, like Sinister, like it gave you nightmares and stuff like that. Does
But it
that?
doesn't sit with
But
me.
that's not the same. Okay.
No.
That's why I was wondering
No,
because like
it didn't sit with me. I mean,
Okay.
I like you mentioned it in our podcast, and I was like, oh wait, that's the movie we just watched. Wait a minute, what was that movie? What? And then my brain had to
Mm.
recollect like what
Gotcha.
we just watched. So I'm like, if I'm at that point where I can't
go back like immediately and then pull like images in my head. I'm like,
Got you.
that wasn't effective. Just like Hereditary, over and over and over in my head. Fucking decapitation all the time. So yes, that movie definitely
Yeah.
set. Midsummer is
Sorry.
similar too. You know, a guy getting like forced to have sex with a girl in a fucking room and all the fucked up shit, and a guy hanging with his back open, and you know all the crazy shit in that movie. So that movie definitely sits there too.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting knowing like what parts sit with you, because with me and Midsummer, it's him burning at the end in a bear suit.
Oh, okay.
That
Yep.
over and over and over again. So
Yep.
it's cool that like movies sit with people, but different parts sit with people. And really, I think Hereditary and Midsummer, oddly enough, are the only two that I'll like conjure up.
Mhm.
And I don't necessarily conjure up that and then get the feeling. I'm really, when it comes to movies, I feel like I'm like all or nothing. With most entertainment, it's either I'll give it all the flowers or it's dead to me. And then
Correct.
there's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
So that's why mine are so like, I love it for everything it has. It doesn't, and most things don't sit with me, but like it's how that feeling, how I feel in that moment.
Yeah.
But I'm able to kind of just move on after that movie's over. Very seldomly, you know, give me a half an hour or so, and then it's like, moving on, like Dory,
Yeah.
Yeah.
onward.
Yeah, that, like I mean, like that's a prime example though, like of why Mandy is a 10 for me, because I just
Oh,
want to
yeah.
roll around in the visuals that they present in
Yeah.
that film. Is it the narrative is really cool. I like all that, but like what it is about that movie is just like the psychedelia of it and everything, and just that's why it's just like I'm so easy at just being like, you know what, I can't think of anything that makes me go meh. It's just like I fucking love this
Right.
movie. 10.
Mhm.
I'm fine. Fuck it. Somebody's gonna be like, you give that a 10? I'm like, sure, fuck you.
But what scene in that movie is what, when you think about that movie, both of you, Mandy, what is the scene that pops into your head immediately?
Where Mandy's burning in the
In the
sleeping
bag.
Mine is Jeremiah talking to Mandy during the acid scene, where their faces are melting together and stuff, and he's like being like, he's like naked and like, you know, like
That's
Yeah.
my
I'm
scene.
I'm
That's
amazing.
my scene too.
And
And
then-
she's cackling at him.
Yep. And then
that's the
Nicolas
one.
Cage confronting Jeremiah down below, and the voices are distorting and the light is pulsing. And he's like,
Okay.
I am your god now. Like that whole thing.
Yeah.
Those are the two scenes that like are like, man, holy shit. Like it's so intense. Like
Okay,
legitimately intense. to me.
So what about Scream? When you think about Scream, what's the scene that you go instantly pops into your head?
Opening the door and Deputy Dewey is holding the mask. He's like, ah! First scene that comes to mind.
Mine's the chair through the glass window.
Okay.
Okay.
When the window breaks.
Oh, and the
mine-
opening? Are you talking about?
Yeah,
in the
and
opening
it's
with-
still in
with-
the opening.
with
Yeah,
Drew
Yeah.
Barrymore.
Yeah.
right.
Mine is when Jamie Kennedy's sitting on the couch watching Halloween, and then like he's in the the background stuff, and
Mhm.
he's like watching it, and he's just like lounging on the couch
Yeah, he's like
in the
high,
house.
and he's like, "Don't
Yeah.
go in there." Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's my scene. So,
Also, Jamie Kennedy in the movie store talking about the horror films and how Billy is like the prime candidate to be the.
yeah,
That's the other one.
Mm.
yeah, that one. Was
I never
good.
like. That's the thing. I never think about the kills in that movie.
Mm-mm.
Realistically, like, yeah, I can like, you know, Rose McGowan getting taken up under the door, all, you know, all that stuff. Oh, the principal's hung up off the goalpost. We all got to go check it out. You know, I can remember all of them, but it is never what comes to mind in that movie for me.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I can't even remember them.
The only one that sticks out is the boyfriend in the beginning, and then with
Yeah.
Drew Barrymore. Like those are the. It's like once those
Same
are
here.
done, you don't really like the movie is not really about that as
And
much
the
anymore.
music. Oh,
Yeah.
the music in that movie is so good.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
you got Echo and the Bunnymen, shit like that, and fucking
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
I have
you-
such a terrible memory when it comes to this stuff.
I
Man,
remember
I'm
this
just
shit,
again-
and I can't remember Steph's phone number. So
100% true.
All right, all
Do you
right.
remember my number? No, can't recall.
I
Is
got
it
I got
this?
my
No.
phone. My phone tells me what it is. I don't need to
Yeah.
store that. But nobody's gonna tell me the scene from Scream when Dewey is holding the fucking mask. I need to keep that. You never know. I could
Yeah.
be voting this November, and like that could be one of the questions. I don't know.
Yes,
No.
that's.
Remember when I was talking about how my brain doesn't work properly?
Yeah.
That's the best way I've ever heard of elections like described as a multiple choice test.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Do you girls have anything you want to champion this week?
I do.
All right.
I don't.
The Democratic National Convention was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm going to champion watching political information with your children.
Oh yeah.
I
Okay.
had so many questions from Wyatt, which were really cool. We got to describe. One of them was actually just as someone was talking, they were talking about the LGBTQ community, and he asked what that was. So it opened up that conversation, and just, yeah, we talked
Yeah.
about, in a kid-friendly way, we talked about the insurrection, just
Yeah.
stuff for a
Mhm.
9-year-old to just kind of see in nature. We get to
Yeah.
talk about it.
Because I find myself guilty of this sometimes. I try not to do this, but I know that this was a huge thing with us growing up, that it's like politics are not talked about, especially not with children, because you're too young to even understand, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And that's not the way to do it. Like, they're going
Right.
to find out one way or another. You'd rather them find out through you.
Right.
So,
Well, we talk about it in ad nauseum with the teenagers. So, like, they're sick of me. And then, like, the other day, Kylie was having a conversation with me about our president, running. And she was like, well, I don't really care for her. And I was like, why? Why don't, like, that's been my argument. I know Nick's kind of in his own mindset of why she's not his favorite person.
I'll vote for her, but like that's not who I want.
Yeah, but I'm the
Yeah.
opposite of that. I don't agree with that. I think it's great. And so, and I was talking to Kylie about it, and we were just chatting about it, and they just don't know, and she's of age to vote, and it's like, if my 20-year-old, she may vote, I don't know, but it's better to have the conversations with your kids so they're aware. And then having a daughter who is 16 dating an 18-year-old, and his family are the biggest fucking Trumpers, and it's quite we've had to have the conversation, like, how do you deal with, like, the divide in a relationship
Right.
when you are very liberal and he is not, and they're just young, they don't know. So
Yeah,
it's
and I
been-
mean,
What a
There-
time to traverse all of that.
I know.
yeah, but what's the way? What am I gonna say? What do I got to say here? Oh yeah, um, it's also really showing. I work with a lot of Republican people, right? And I am very openly liberal. I vote Democrat, but I am wildly more liberal. But I also don't want to have a Republican in office. Anyway, it's also really surprising, though, how little Republicans know what their party is running with or for and everything. That being said, I was talking to a guy, very big, like fucking God, guns, and government kind of guy, right?
Hmm.
And I was like very open, like I'm voting for Harris and all this stuff. And he kind of gives me a look, and he's just like, "Well, why would you do that?" I was like, just on the basis alone that the Republicans want Project 2025. He's like, "What's that?" And I just sent him some shit, and I was like, "This is
Oh.
what they fucking want. They've been loud and proud about this stuff." And
Yeah.
then once Harris was the nominee, they decided to be a little more hush about it, But he's like,
Right.
"Oh shit, I might have to look into that." I was like, "It's like a 900-page document. There's Cliff Notes versions of it. I
Yeah.
suggest reading that, and then if you're okay with that, that's on you. Like it's your right as an American to vote how you want. But this is 100% why. Like I don't care who was running as the Democrat. The fact that the Republicans are saying this, I'm going to vote for the Democrat because that
Right.
shit scares the absolute living hell out of me. I'm still always going to be forever scorn that the Democrats have never done Bernie Sanders. So that's always I'm always going to be very, very butthurt about that. Because I think he was about the most liberal Democrat that will ever get like talked about. Beyond that, it's like I got to go Green Party or Independent to get what I actually want, and by doing that, I'm not helping anything. So I might as well work my way left. Democrat, get another Democrat in. Just hopefully keep working it left. So one day, like when I'm decrepit, getting hit with a hammer by my kids, that
It'll be-
maybe there's another left party left of the Democrats that will get into power. So
Yeah, maybe.
that's how I look at it. Anyway, enough political talk. For everyone, just shut it off. 'Cause
Yeah,
this is a-
sorry,
this-
I threw
this
that
is a
out
whole-
there,
this
but-
is a
That's
horror
fine.
podcast.
That's fine.
Yeah.
No, but this is a
I
open
know.
time to talk
This-
about whatever the fuck
This
we
is
want,
after
so.
dark. This is unedited.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, my thing to champion is that fucking movie I mentioned earlier, Moon Garden. It's on Shudder. It's visually fucking amazing. On keep this in mind though, it feels like a made-for-TV movie. It's got weird like fade to blacks and then come back. It feels like there should be a commercial break at times, right? But what the movie is about, it's about this like 5-year-old girl that her parents are like splitting up and fighting and all this stuff, and she's kind of in the middle of it. She goes to run downstairs, falls down the stairs, and is in a coma. And you're following her in like this industrial nightmare realm, trying to get home as she's able to hear what's going on around her and stuff, because like through this like radio she can hear her mom talking to her in the hospital and all this stuff, and there's this thing chasing her down, and there's these things that are just like storybooks that she was read as a kid, and like her stuffed animals like this rhinoceros in the real world, in her nightmare realm kind of thing. It's this massive like machine that she's in that she can like pull the levers and it like walks. The best way that I can describe this movie is like it's like Pan's Labyrinth and Coraline are kind of tied together, and then like just given like an industrial kind of veneer, because it's very and Silent Hill, that was the thing, because it's very rusty and kind of decrepit feeling. It's definitely got like some emo goth kind of vibes here and there with like some of the characters that you see, but like it's definitely worth the watch. And like I said, it's kid friendly. There's like realistically very little if any cursing. The only time you see blood at all is like they cut to like she's getting like operated on. They like show like a scalpel cut, and then you're seeing like blood through a tube, like where they're cycling blood. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no other like gore or anything like that. It's like dark fantasy. It's horror-ish. Like it definitely sits in like Coraline is technically horror, right?
Yeah.
Like
It is creepy. So I
yeah,
mean,
and it's right in that same vein, you know. Pan's like it sits right in between that, because like Coraline, I like, yeah, it gets creepy. This movie, I think the creature you're dealing with is far creepier. There's a lot more metaphors that like I was picking up on after watching. I was like, oh, that's what this meant. Coraline really doesn't have that. And then like Pan's Labyrinth is rated R. It is very bloody at times and everything, and it is a very heavy film because it deals with like some very serious things. So it's right in that middle spot.
Okay.
So I highly suggest checking it out. Like it's one of those things that like I watched it and I was just like, yeah, that's fucking great. I just wish it didn't have that TV movie feel. That's the only thing that I'm just like, but yeah.
do you guys got anything else? Tasha,
I
you got
have
anything else?
I have my actual thing that I came in
Oh, okay.
wanting to talk about.
Okay.
The other one
right
that
on.
just happened. So I have a hard time sleeping. I usually fall asleep to podcasts, and I'm always trying to find like the perfect sleepy time.
Whoa. Are you telling people to listen to things that aren't Pot of the Dead?
Yeah,
How fucking dare you?
because it's not a competitor.
Okay.
I don't want people to listen to this podcast and fall asleep. But the one that I'm going to champion, that's the whole point of it.
Okay.
A lot of podcasts I've tried like that are sleep oriented always have that like weird ASMR. I'm going to talk directly into the microphone
Yeah.
quality.
Hello,
And I
how's it
hate that.
going?
I hate
Yes.
stop. I hate that so much. And it does the opposite
We're going to go
effect.
to sleep now.
You can be done now. Complete with mouth sounds. So if you're like me, check out, it's called Lights Out Library. It's just like this, it's sounding like older woman reading documentary scripts instead of it being like a story or something like that. They're really good. Like Polynesian myths and legends. I listened to one about gemstones. And with this, I usually wake up like 2 or 3 times in the middle of the night. I'm asleep within like 10 minutes and it's perfect.
Nice.
Oh,
Okay.
it's so good.
That's
yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have anything this week. My
Alright.
week has
Well.
not been full of
That's all good.
anything that I can think of.
That's all
So,
good. We got their money already.
That's nice.
Hey, we
Great-
appreciate
Great job, honey.
Yeah, hey, fuck it. Like fuck it.
She loves the sweater she's wearing.
Yes.
The soft,
Yes.
cozy blanket shirts.
From TikTok shop, $20. Yeah.
But yeah, that's all we got today for Spot of the Dead After Dark or whatever the fuck it's called.
Yes.
I will say this though, we should have brought it up in the main episode, but Tasha and I are doing a like creepypasta podcast that's going to be mostly listenable through, well, viewable through the Patreon, but we'll pop out some episodes every once in a while in the main feed and stuff. And inadvertently, we named the podcast "Serious Pasta for Serious People."
Oh my god.
So
Serious pasta. Okay.
It
Yeah.
just happened organically.
So
Okay.
that's what it's called now. Serious Pasta for Serious People.
That,
And
that
it's-
goes well.
It's literally just us co-reading creepypastas to each other, having fun with it, laughing, bullshitting. The first one that we did, holy shit. What
It
the
was a
fuck
swing
did we
and a
re-
miss.
miss? Like, what were we aiming for realistically?
It's true. Fair point.
You know, what is it? Aim for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll be amongst the stars. Like that.
Yeah,
Isn't that
yeah.
There we go.
So,
Yeah, that's cheesy, but go for it.
hey, that's a thing. It's a
Complete
thing.
know
with
it
the
is.
hand.
Yeah.
Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. All right. So yeah,
That's
thanks guys.
beautiful.
Thanks guys for listening to the episode.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for giving
Yay.
us a couple bucks here and there. We really appreciate it, and through
Yep.
those funds, you make this way easier to manage. So
Yes.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.